Welcome to our epic ocean, where critical solutions to a planet in peril are brought to the surface. Our epic ocean celebrates all that is epic about the ocean and why it is the planet's most vital resource. And now to our host, Rich Gurman.
I consider today's guest the true Renaissance man. Over the last 20 plus years, Adrian Grenier has worn many hats. Successful actor, producer, director, dedicated musician, environmentalist, social entrepreneur, and spokesperson for both endangered marine species and a global drawdown of plastic pollution. From creating the breakthrough sustainable lifestyle series Alter Eco on Discovery's Planet Green, co-hosting the first charity water ball in New York City, to the launch of SHFT, a brand which promotes sustainability through film, design, art, and culture, to co-founding the Loneliest Whale Foundation, he has long been at the forefront of inspiring us all to do better. The Loneliest Whale Foundation, originally inspired by the true story of 52 Blue, the loneliest whale, has become a beacon for those who have a deep love for the ocean, promoting ocean health through conservation and immersive experiences. Adrian is now wearing a new hat, a cowboy hat, as he has traded in his Hollywood pursuits to follow his dream of a more down-to-earth existence, moving to an Austin, Texas farm, driving a tractor, planting fruit trees, and working towards creating a wildlife sanctuary. With a new documentary film premiering this month about the loneliest whale, a pending harvest, and a growing impact investment fund, Adrian's life seems full and rewarding. Adrian, welcome to our epic ocean. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks. Hello. Hey, everyone.
Good to have you here. So I want to get into your background and talk about Lonely Whale and all the projects that you were focused on. But let's start with something very timely, which is the release of the new documentary film, The Loneliest Whale, originally a kickstarted, crowdsourced endeavor produced by you and Leonardo DiCaprio, written, directed, narrated, and co-starring Joshua Zeman. First off, congratulations. Creating a film like this is a big deal. Please tell us the story and how the doc came to be.
Yeah, well, you know, all films are a feat. Every time I go see a movie, I always, even if I hate the movie, I'm just in awe of the fact that it actually got done. Because, you know, I know how much goes into it and how challenging it is. A lot of effort, a lot of trials, a lot of challenges, but yeah, I mean, it's got done. So I'm very, very, very happy. And it finally now has a life out in the world and people get to see it. So I'm super excited about that and very proud. The film was the initial inspiration for the nonprofit that I built. So have a lot of gratitude for that because it really gave me some direction at the time. Mm-hmm.
So for people that don't know the story of the Loneliest Whale, give us the brief version of that and how it all melded into creating a documentary.
Yeah, well, so I was approached by my friend Lucy Sumner about helping her produce this documentary about the loneliest whale in the world. And I didn't know the story at the time. My interest was piqued. I was like, tell me more. What is this loneliest whale in the world? And she begins to tell me the story that there's a real whale, a real creature that migrates up and down the West Coast, calling out, seeking for connection. But this whale sings at a different frequency than all other whales. So normally whales sing between 15 and 20 hertz, but this whale, for some reason, is singing at 52 hertz. So it's different, not just a different dialect, a completely different language. And knowing what we know about whales being highly, highly sentient, they have spindle cells which are associated with consciousness. So arguably, whales have some degree of consciousness, self-awareness, and they're highly, highly social creatures. They spend their whole lives in pods. They never leave their families. Mothers and babies they spend their whole lives together.
That's right.
And so here's this whale, smart, sentient, seeking connection, and calling out at a different frequency to the point where he'd never received a response. Oh, and you hear that story and you just, like your heart just opens. And when I heard the story, I was hooked. I was ready. I was like, yes, let's make this film. Absolutely.
And that was 6 years ago that you and Lucy had this conversation, around the time that you started Lonely Whale, or?
Well, yeah, maybe a little bit more. I'm not sure the exact timeline, but yeah, quite some time ago. And so, I'd made many films, I'd made many documentaries, and I'd started nonprofits. And the one thing that I'd recognize is usually you'll make a film, it's like either social commentary or some sort of film designed to bring awareness on a topic. Mm-hmm. And what would happen is we'd spend all of our time and energy focusing on making the film, that by the time it was done, we didn't put a lot of time into building the call to action. Yes. Meaning, where do people go when they watch the film and they want to do something? Where do we channel the outrage? And so that was always an afterthought from most of the films that I'd made. So, we'd throw up a website, film.com, and then, say go to there. And then it was sort of, we weren't able to really harness all that energy. So I said, listen, I'll help produce the film, but I want to be able to make a legitimate nonprofit for ocean conservation, so that when people go see the film and they want to do something to help Lonely Whale and to support our oceans and to do something about ocean noise pollution, they'll have somewhere to go to actually harness and pour in their passion. And so we started Lonely Whale, the nonprofit, right when we started producing the film. And while it's, Lonely Whale is now about 5 years old, we have, countless campaigns and projects. And now that the film's coming out, people actually have somewhere legitimate to go with, a team of people supporting ocean conservation.
Yeah, I feel like you hit the core challenge with documentaries. People, obviously, to make a documentary, you have to have a huge passion. So you have these amazing, passionate people who make beautiful films, and they don't have a way to really market the film after it's made, so most people don't see it. And then to your point, there's no real call to action, which is really my next question. Like, what are you specifically hoping to accomplish with the film, and make sure to share where people can watch it?
I really think the film is fundamentally about our ability to connect with one another, to what's important, and to nature. There's a story of separation, that we're somehow separate from nature, and that illusion of separation is continued now into our society, where we're more and more separate from each other. We're on our phones, we're isolated. Family units breaking down, we don't spend as much time in social gatherings, and now you have COVID, where we're all, further isolated. Yeah. So there's a really important parallel between the story of the loneliest whale and loneliest people.
The story of a human being, yeah.
Yes. So first and foremost, I think that resonates a lot. In terms of how do we want to live? How do we want to be? What's really important? And can we use connection? Because connection is arguably one of the most important things one of the most important aspects of being human. And how does that actually help us be better humans and actually achieve greater things collectively? And that, it includes the environment, our environmental challenges. So really, Lonely Whale, the nonprofit, we're not here to save the oceans or save animals. We're here to cultivate connection. If we can connect people and align them with their shared values, connect them with the environment, bond them with the ocean, the theory is we'll make better decisions together, and together we'll be able to execute more effectively in whatever the solution is.
I totally agree. It sounds like you're saying if we can connect with ourselves first, if I can connect with myself first, then I can better connect with you, and other humans, and then collectively we'll start making better decisions, not only for our own personal health, but for the health of the planet. Does that pretty much sum it up?
100%. And a lot of times a nonprofit will dictate on high what you have to do to make the world better. But our existence, our nature is so complex, as it should be. It needs to be complexity breeds resilience. And if you look at nature, that's what it is. It's so diverse and full of complexity. There's no sameness, right? So we need to inspire people to come to solutions from where they are, locally, super intimate with their experience. And everybody needs to come with their own wisdom from their own perspective. So that's why we focus on connection and bonds over a dictation of, a list of to-dos. That it just doesn't work, right? There's not one size fits all.
Yeah. And shaming people in the process, right?
And making people scared and fearful and shaming them and all that. That's just not effective.
Yeah, I'm with you. And where can people watch the film?
Oh.
You're just the producer.
Can I look it up real quick? I should look that up.
Playing in a theater near you and streaming online, I believe, right?
There are some screenings, yeah.
We'll find it. We'll share links when we release this.
Okay,
interview.
Thank you.
We'll let people know.
Google it.
I thought that was an easy question, but I thought that was a softball. I guess not. So we'll get more into Lonely Whale, but I want to go back into time back in time for a bit here. You, I believe, were born in New Mexico, raised by your mother in New York City. New York City's on the water, Manhattan, an island surrounded by two big rivers, but it's thought more of a concrete jungle than an ocean community. What first led you to fall in love with the ocean? Was there an aha moment for you?
Yeah, that's a great point. I make that all the time. I talk about disconnect. I grew up in New York, and it's an ocean city. It's right there. There's the ocean. You can see it out, from the southern border of the island, and flanked by these two beautiful rivers. Mm-hmm. And yet I did not feel that. I did not think of myself as growing up in nature. It was a concrete jungle, as you said. And I just started to reflect on that disconnect that I was feeling, even though I'm right there on the ocean. Imagine people who are landlocked.
Yeah.
Or just generally, like our society is further and further disconnected from nature, just on an experiential level. And that what kind of effect does that have on people? Yeah, I mean, how can we bring that sense of bond to the human experience, especially with an ocean, which is so abstract and far away, and many people don't even get to experience the ocean. And in LA, there are kids living in South Central who've never seen the ocean, and it's 3 miles away. Who've never even seen it.
I know. I'm in Laguna Beach, like an hour south of LA, and there's kids 10, 15 minutes inland that have never been to the beach. It's just sad. And
what does that do to our psyches? If you can't connect, you can't care. I mean, who cares? The ocean, it's being polluted, doesn't affect me. But one thing that the oceans are a common pool resource, meaning nobody owns them. We, as a global community, collectively own the oceans, save for a half a mile, 2 miles offshore. But ultimately, the vast majority of the oceans are shared territory by all the nations. We all have equal access, but we own it. So if we have a sense of ownership, then we can protect it. But we have to, if somebody came in your backyard and threw garbage, or decided to cut the fin off your dog, or with whatever the equivalent is, you'd have something to say about that. Well, there's no difference. The ocean is your backyard and you own it. It is yours. And people are dumping and exploiting and overfishing, and that is an offense on you. But we have to have that sense of ownership and that sense of connection before we can jump to that conclusion.
I think to your point, I've always felt like you said, the ocean is so huge and so vast, it's hard to relate to. So that's the beauty of the Loneliest Whale as an example. I can relate to that one whale, and then I can relate to the home where it lives in, which makes it a very different experience, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and that's what Lonely Whale's power is really making those connections, you know? Yeah. So his story, while he can't communicate to others of his species, he can communicate directly to the human heart, which gives 100%. Us an opportunity to listen to the wisdom and the message, like the lessons of Lonely Whale in how we can connect more. Because if we can have a shared experience with this whale and understand and care and have a sense of empathy for his plight, you know, you can extrapolate from there into other aspects of the ocean.
Absolutely. So you mentioned LA. You left New York City, found your way to Hollywood, achieved what many people would consider to be massive success, most notably playing the role of movie star Vincent Chase in the hit HBO series Entourage. And then you consciously left the spotlight, left the fame, a life defined in many ways by material possessions, to really focus on yourself and truly begin to live in alignment with nature. I'm curious, how similar was your actual reality to that of Vince's character, and what led you to walking away from this apparent dream life?
It's such a cliche. You hear, there's a lot of people who've said, it's not all it's cracked up to be, fame, fortune, it's lonely at the top, all that stuff. And it's true. The things that really bring meaning and depth to our lives are not the superficial things like money and fame and copious amounts of attention, indulgences. And so I just was becoming increasingly more discontent with life. I wanted partnership. I wanted family. And I wanted to be closer to nature. I wanted to not just proselytize for connection to nature. I wanted to actually cultivate it. And, I found myself doing a lot of talking, a lot of preaching about the way we should live, but then not a lot of applying that philosophy in my real life. I had a nonprofit for gardening, for food and farming, and I never did that myself. Yeah, because it was this sort of idealistic idea, but really, that you've heard this saying: change starts from within, and so be the change. And that's finally, I finally got hip to that, and I actually started to apply that.
Nice. So we'll talk about how you wound up in Austin, which obviously is newer, but let's back up to Lonely Whale for a moment. Like you said, you founded Lonely Whale in 2015 with Lucy Sumner. Dune Ives, who I recently interviewed, who's amazing, came on as your CEO in, I think, a year after, in 2016. And your initial intention, like we were saying, was to bring this vast epic ocean closer to everyone, with the guiding principles of community and caring, with the ocean, of course, at the center and the heart of it all. I'm wondering, after 6 years on the journey of leading the organization and creating really important campaigns around awareness and consciousness, and with 6 more years of spiritual and personal growth under your own belt, how has the mission of Lonely Whale changed and evolved? And also, how have you evolved as a human being, just navigating his way through life?
Lonely Whale has done several projects and campaigns, and has just become quite a force. But really, the mission hasn't changed. I think we nailed it on the mission. In fact, we had to make sure that we reconnected with our mission, because we were sort of drifting a little bit away from it. And this year we came back and we went through our mission vision. We not perfected it, but we doubled down on what it is. And we realized the one thing that, and this is probably how we've changed the most, is we realized that connection isn't just outside, it's also personal. So connecting with yourself first and foremost, and knowing yourself, and getting to understand the incredible technology, which is you, the human being, and your ability to think and feel and, receive information from the outside world, and to make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you can be the most effective advocate for your values, the planet, the ocean. So we came up with the concept that self-care is ocean care. And we believe that the more you take care of yourself and you optimize your ability to perform and to be resilient and to endure the long life of commitment to conservation, then you're actually helping out. But if you're overtaxed, and you're run down, and you just become ineffective, and you start getting sloppy, and your sense making is off, and you can't actually be as supportive to not only your own self, but your family, your community, and the ocean. So self-care is such an important thing, and that's what we've not that we've changed focus, but we've deepened what it means to be connected.
That's so important. When I first started dipping my pool in the nonprofit world, it was probably 2010, and I started a charity that supported homeless youth here in the United States. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I realized, as important as that was, like, that wasn't my passion. My passion is with the ocean. But I remember meeting people in that world, and they were just like you described. They were these incredible people that were working their asses off, and they were all completely out of shape, and they were totally broke. Their lives were a mess. And I was like, this is not a sustainable process that these people were working. I'm curious on that. Like, when you started Lonely Whale, did you see a gap in the ocean conservation world that you were trying to fill?
Yes. I think it was the ocean itself, because I was working in environment for a long time, and the oceans just never really came up. People weren't dealing with the oceans, and climate had made its way to the front and center on the global stage and everybody's awareness, thanks to, I guess, Al Gore and what was that movie? Oh yeah, The Inconvenient Truth. So climate was like, within everybody's awareness, but the oceans were still vastly neglected, and arguably more important, because everything starts with the ocean, and the ocean is so huge, and all of climate is actually quite connected to ocean and its systems. So, maybe one of the reasons why there is so much unawareness about the ocean is because it can take so much more, whereas the climate, like air, is more volatile. So it's actually more, the damages are more readily demonstrative within the climate, but in the ocean, they can absorb a lot. They're like the liver, like they can take a lot of beating, but once they reach that tipping point, we're fucked, So it was like, we got to do something about the oceans. So that's when I decided to shift my focus to oceans specifically. And then Lucy came along with the film, and I was like, that's how we're going to do it. It's through the story of the Lonely Whale. And
I love that you didn't wait to make the film, because that took 6 years, you guys just killed it with so many amazing promotions in the last 6 years leading up to this. So probably worked out better that you really got your foundation set, and now the movie's out.
Yeah, it had to be an authentic organization. It couldn't just be an afterthought or half-baked organization just to, I don't know, pretend like we're actually doing something. It had to be a standalone, legitimate organization.
100%. So I want to return to Lonely Whale in a few minutes, but I want our audience to know where you are at now, both physically and perhaps spiritually. You recently left LA for Austin, Texas.
New York.
I've been to Austin. Say it again?
Left New York for Austin. I've always lived in New York.
So you're bi-coastal. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So left New York, moved to Austin. I've been to Austin. It's a great place. There's great music. There's a statue of Stevie Ray Vaughan. Can't be a bad place at all right there. You got great people. I remember the river, but no ocean there. What led you to Texas?
Yeah, I was bi-coastal, and now I'm no coastal. No coast here. I just fell in love with Austin for, as you said, the culture, community, music, down-paced lifestyle. Pace of life is just really, really, it really serves me right now in this time of my life, and nature-based. There's a lot of connection to nature here, and and then also just the people. It's really fundamentally about the people. They're not a lot of pretense. Very, very, and cosmopolitan and like super smart and successful, but not a lot of pomp and circumstance. I found that, growing up on the coasts, the liberal coast, there's a lot of performance, a lot of seen, be seen, and status and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was born in Chicago, and now living in California, I love California. It's beautiful. I'm right on the beach. I mean, there's so many great things, but
totally,
the people are definitely different. I feel like Austin maybe has more of a Midwest kind of vibe. Were they pretty receptive to you coming in? Mr. Hollywood, Mr. New Yorker. Did they welcome you with open arms, or has there been a little transition?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had any issues. No issues. We'll see. That can't last forever, I imagine. There's conflict in life, so.
You haven't been there long enough. No, I'm just kidding. So what are you discovering about the connection between the land and the sea, and how does what we do on land impact the ocean and vice versa? Yeah, absolutely. Of course, all rivers end up going to the ocean. So what we do on land is just as important if we're not just right on the coast, particularly in farmlands and the farming practices, because there's a lot of detrimental runoff, particularly chemical runoff from big agriculture and Roundup and pesticides, as well as fertilizers and then huge cattle operations with the manure, the sludge, toxic sludge, and then the tilling, a lot of tilling, which is an old world practice that really just is quite damaging to the earth, to the soil, because when you till the soil, you unearth a lot of the nutrients, and then when it rains, they all get washed down into the rivers and then ultimately in the ocean, which create algae blooms in the ocean, etc. And then furthermore, when you churn up the soil, you release a lot of carbon into the atmosphere. So, so a lot to learn there, being landlocked, but also knowing that you're still connected to the ocean. And so your farming practices, what you do on the land is vital, is important. I'm curious, how has your diet altered as a result of this new farming lifestyle? And where do you put personal nutrition and how we treat animals on the spectrum of ocean conservation?
Yes, self-care is ocean care. So eat right. Eat right, boys and girls. Yeah, I've been eating a lot more fresh, like straight from the garden, fresh vegetables. No, we don't have fruits yet. We just planted a bunch of fruit trees, so it'll take a couple of years before before they become fruitful. But a lot of, more fresh vegetables, and then also very local, hyper local foods that we can get from the farmers market. So that's been a real treat. But then the second part of your question was
just animal care, how we treat animals in relation to ocean conservation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we need to certainly reconsider how we treat animals, and I think we've trained ourselves to think we're, again, separate from animals and the earth. So therefore we feel entitled to exploit them. And just simply for our own profit or consumption.
Yeah.
But we really need to find deeper connection to the animals on the planet. And if we are going to consume animals, if we're going to eat animals, that's even more important to develop that connection with those animals so that you take it seriously when you're eating a piece of meat. It's not just it shouldn't be flip. It shouldn't be unconsidered. It needs to be, taken very, very seriously, because you're taking a life, so you make the most of it.
I agree. So let's shift a little. I want to talk about the nonprofit world. Like you, I founded and lead a nonprofit organization. In fact, I'm happy to say that our nonprofit Project O is partners with Loneliest Whale. And as we both know, most nonprofits spend so much time fundraising, perhaps more time on fundraising than actually implementing ideas and projects. And many seem to be working autonomously out of fear that they're going to take each other's donors. You and I share the same mentality of community and collaboration, that to solve the ills of the world, we need to work together. So my question is the nonprofit model a broken one?
Yeah, I mean, I think bluntly speaking, yes, it is. We're living in a capitalist society, and money talks. Money is energy, and money is the energy that powers and motivates action in our society. So when you have an organization that is a non-profit, you're already setting it up to be less effective in the world. The intentions, are awesome and amazing, and yet, I think that we need to recognize that you actually hamstring, you undermine an organization when they're a nonprofit. And as you said, a lot of the effort of the organizers, of the people working at a nonprofit, are focused on trying to bring in money, and ultimately, yeah. I mean, if a company, see, the other thing is people hold nonprofits to a different standard than a for-profit.
That's right.
It's like, oh,
we're looked at way more than an average corporation.
Right.
You're totally right.
And this mentality that, oh, you spend all this money on admin and you're not actually spending money on the thing that you're supposed to be helping, is a totally backwards mentality. And yet you look at a big, international corporation, and they do nothing good, and they at least pay lip service to doing something good, but the vast majority is bad.
Yeah.
And they're applauded for, record shareholder returns. So be nicer to nonprofits, be less, scrutinizing of what they spend on. And by the way, people are working. They deserve to make a living and to be paid. And I think people in nonprofits should be paid more. There should be more money paid to administration, more money paid to CEOs, so you can attract the caliber of talent that it takes to get this work done. That's my opinion.
What about I 100% agree. And I think that's very counterintuitive to at least how a lot of people out there think about it. But what about a hybrid model? Profit-based projects fueling the nonprofits, enabling us to be environmentally conscious entrepreneurs and not always have to be writing grants and have our hands out. Would that make more sense?
Yeah, well, funny you should say. Lonely Whale has evolved in that way as well. We have created a for-profit arm, and so we can consult for-profit, and that organization can make money. It's not restricted by the nonprofit laws. And then once that for-profit entity makes money, all the profits flow to the nonprofit. So there's no distribution to shareholders or owners of the for-profit. All money just goes right to the nonprofit. So the more money the for-profit makes, it all just funnels to the nonprofit. Is
that do Contra, or is that a totally separate deal?
That's 52 Hertz. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Consulting agency. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Actually, yeah, Dune and I talked a little bit about that. You guys just launched that, right?
Yeah.
Recently?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, beautiful. So that was your solution to this challenge that we're talking about?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, awesome. And we'll get into Do Contra Ventures, but first, let's talk about Shift. You also co-founded, I'm not sure what year, but alongside Peter Glatzer, I hope I'm saying that right, Shift.com, a lifestyle platform focused on sustainability and the merging of design and innovation. Tell us a little bit about Shift. Yeah,
Shift. Well, Shift, it was a while ago. We were way ahead of the curve. We started the first online lifestyle, like sustainable lifestyle brand. So we had art, culture, fashion, business, all sustainable. And we created a lot of great content stories around, what was happening in sustainability. And this is already 10 plus years ago or something. I don't know, a long time ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And very proud of that. But that was, we won Webby Awards and we were doing very well. But then the internet exploded and there was so much competition. And if you've seen, that movie, The Social Network. Social Dilemma. The Social Dilemma.
Social Dilemma.
Then you have companies that are now designed to, basically get you hooked on their products or on their apps and then their sites so that you keep going back. We just didn't have the desire to do that, so we kind of got. We decided to pivot at a certain point.
We shifted.
We shifted. Well, now Shift is focusing on sustainable development, real estate, and city development.
Oh, okay, cool. So it's totally different now. So I mentioned Do Contra Ventures. I want to talk about that a little bit. This is an impact firm that you co-founded and are the CEO of, where you bring investors, founders, and thought leaders together.
I'm not CEO. I mean, I'm one of the investors, the VCs.
Oh, I thought you were the CEO. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you're a VC, but you co-founded it, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Got it. And this kind of like Lonely Whale, it's about connection and community while also making a profit. And on your website, it says that this came about after a 2-year journey into the darkness. Can you tell me about this journey and how that led to the physical manifestation of this firm?
Yeah, well, I sort of hit rock bottom a couple years ago and needed to make some major changes in my life. And the way you do that is you break down, break through, and that's just the way it goes. If you want to make change, you got to go into the depths of of what is deep inside and like wrestle with the dragons. and come out renewed. So I did that for about 2 years, and it was really, really hard, challenging. I shed a lot of nonsense, let go of a lot of, bullshit, and ended up coming to a more grounded, more centered, more heart-centered and nature-based, or oriented in that way. And decided I wanted to shift careers a bit, and had been doing a lot of impact investing, a certain amount of impact investing for many years, but casually, and then started working with Ba Minuzzi, who has Umana, which basically was helping me find investments that were aligned with my values. And we got along so well that we decided to, and we were successful too. We were after a couple of years of doing that, we were getting really great returns. So we decided to launch a venture fund, sort of a growth fund for bigger companies. So we ended up launching this to raise $150 million so that we can invest in companies that are changing the world across 4 verticals. Okay. And this is the most exciting part for me, is we're able to focus our investments on 4 things that we think will have a positive feedback loop on impact. So how can we create change and let change beget more change? And it's not dissimilar from the self-care is ocean care, in that one of our verticals is human flourishing. So the companies we invest in are focused on the betterment of human beings. So health, wellness, mental health, well-being. So leveling up of humans. How can we actually support people to be better? Better people make the better planet. So that's one of our verticals. And then community, connection. How do we connect? So again, not dissimilar from Lonely Whale. It's like communitas. So that's another one of our verticals. Companies that are focused and designed to aid in bringing people together to achieve things together. And then we have do consumer, which are consumer goods. What we consume and how. These are very, very critical and important aspects of human existence. And also a lot of these, like what we consume and how we consume it, has a lot of effect on the planet and on people. So better for you consumer goods and supply chains and processes for a better planet. And then finally, what we call the future of finance. It's looking at money, and we were talking about this before. Money is the main energy flow within our system, so we need to really take that seriously. And we believe that money is a tool, but too much have we made money the focus, the goal. But right. We need to get into right relationship with money and make sure that we recognize that it's a tool, simply a tool. And the spirit of that tool is determined by the hand of the user. So how are you using this money? What are you using for? Are you achieving your highest moral good, or are you simply exploiting the world and doing what you can for selfish reasons? And so that's another vertical where we focus on tools of finance that bring more access and equity to the world's wealth so that people can do things positively with that money.
This is super interesting. So just to recap the 4 verticals. So it's personal health, creating community, looking at what we consume, how we consume it, and then looking at all things money, the future of finance, creating an equitable financial situation. And it's the most interesting part to me, not only is the potential impact this will all make, but on a personal level, you basically took everything that you've experienced in your journey and it's kind of come into physical form, which hopefully can make a big impact for people and planet. That's pretty awesome. I don't know if you ever step back and really look at that, or it's just kind of you're in it, so it's just kind of what you're doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just thematically appropriate, right, from what I've been doing, and just taking it to the next level. And that now, we can do something. We can deploy a lot of real capital to companies that are making a real impact, and at the same time create a community of like-minded thinkers so that we can continue to create that positive feedback loop of change together. Yes. And that's another aspect to do Contra that I didn't mention, is that besides the investments, we are creating a community of experience. So a felt return on the experience of that impact, because it's not just this abstract thing that, we look at spreadsheets and we say, oh yeah, we made some money this year, right on. But it's like, no, what did we actually do to change the world? And are we connecting into that? And can we feel it? Can we share that experience, that felt experience? Because when you have that positive feedback feeling of having done something, it begets itself and it further inspires more of that change. So we want to bring in our LPs, our investors, our entrepreneurs, bring them together so that we can share in the impact that we're creating.
That's so powerful. It's like the opposite. Like if someone's depressed, has just negative thoughts constantly running through their head, the more negative thoughts you have, the more negative thoughts, that loop works in a negative fashion also. So you're basically trying to flip that in a positive way. Give me an example. Is this something that's coming in terms of that experience that you're trying to create? Yeah.
So creating a media arm so we can story tell, we can communicate our accomplishments and spread, spread that way. And then also retreats and experiences that we will host throughout the year, every quarter, and then, smaller ones more often, and then maybe one big one a year. So instead of having fancy cocktail parties and, champagne toasts with crab cakes, we're doing, slightly more meaningful, important gatherings of humans to, again, continue to up level.
Well, if you ever want to get a group together and go swimming with whales or dolphins, count me in on that one.
Yes.
I would love that. Let's go back to Lonely Whale for a moment. Dune and I went into great detail on most of your major programs in our interview, but I definitely want to cover one of the big programs with you because I know that it holds a special place in your heart, and that is the Ocean Heroes Boot Camp. Mm-hmm. Plus, I know one of your Ocean Heroes, Coda, who is the daughter of the executive director of my nonprofit.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Also holds a special place in your heart. So tell us about Ocean Heroes and why is it so important?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was just becoming more and more clear that we needed to harness the passion of these youngsters. And there were so many young kids who just like all sorts of youngsters from around the world who were writing us and being like, I want to help, or, I'm doing this project, and so we created the Ocean Heroes Boot Camp, where we bring together all of these kids in a conference style boot camp where they learn about, ocean health, science, and they have their games and projects, and everybody gets together and they create campaigns to go back to bring back to their local communities and advocate for the ocean, which is amazing. But the most important thing is the connection. We get kids together so they can bond and connect with one another and take those relationships with them when they do the work. And what it does is it encourages them to continue to do the very, very difficult work of supporting the oceans because they have each other to support.
That's amazing. I've been saying for years now that it's our generation and previous ones that have done so much damage to the ocean and the planet, and it's this new generation with a higher level of consciousness that will lead the charge to make the changes necessary to slow climate change, hopefully even reverse it. Ultimately, it's going to take all of us. But what do you see in working with these young heroes? What can we really learn from them?
What it is to me is to watch their hope, their people. I think our generation is sort of a little cynical. We're sort of on some level deep down inside we've given up, and it's like the sacrifices are just too much for us to think it's worth. And whereas the kids they're ready to like put it all on the line and do whatever they can to help, because they really feel their hearts are open. They're very connected emotionally.
Yeah. Speaking of feeling, I hear people using the term eco-anxiety when people, like you say, especially younger people, they really begin to dive into this seemingly endless list of challenges facing our planet. It's really easy to get overwhelmed. And maybe that's like what you're saying some people do. They just kind of check out. The fear of the unknown becomes too much to bear. Mm-hmm. And in my experience, it's the most sensitive among us who tend to care the most about the issues. They truly feel the depth of the challenges, which, like you said, can be hard. I mean, that's why I started this podcast. It really is my personal quest to find solutions that was born out of my love and connection with dolphins and whales, period. So what can you say about eco-anxiety? And for anyone watching that maybe relates, what's the best way to move through it?
Well, it may sound harsh, but I think that in many ways, eco-anxiety is ego-driven. And, we've been told in this society that, we matter and, your way, consumer's always right and whatever you want, and click a button and it'll show up to your house and everything is catered to you and what you need and what you want. And it's a consumer-based, ego-based reality. Yeah. And so when we look at something that suddenly is beyond us, is bigger than us, that we may not be able to fix with a click of a button, that takes more effort or more commitment, we're not accustomed to that. It's not your way right away all of a sudden. It's your way, hopefully, but maybe not in your lifetime. But you have to still commit and do the work and set the foundations for future generations to take the baton and continue forth. You're planting trees whose shade you may never get to enjoy, but someone will one day. And I think that that's where the anxiety comes in, because the instinct, the desire is to fix the world and change it in the expression of what my ego thinks it should look like. It should be, natural and beautiful sunsets, and then like all the animals, abundant. And that may be true, but to achieve that, I think takes much more humble deference, to relent, to let go of what you think it should be, and just chop wood, carry water, head down, do the work, be present, continue to drop into self and be connected with yourself first. Don't get too far out in the world, in the macro. And I think it's a psychological thing between the infinity of everything, which is infinitely big and infinitely small. And if you start to go too big into the infinite, everything big and the overwhelming, size of the magnitude of the problems, you're done. It's like too much. But if you get so small that you lose sight of the big picture, then you're, maybe ineffective. So I like to practice personally what I call oscillation therapy. And you just make sure that you're oscillating between the macro, the big, and then the micro. Look at the big problem, the ocean, 10 million tons of plastic that makes its way into the ocean every year. Oh my God, it's huge. Don't stay there. Know it, be aware. Okay, and now let's come down to what we can do. A single-use plastic straw. Stop sucking. Now we can do something actionable. Now let's look back. Oh my God, this is so big. And like, and then like, it's like looking at the map and then putting the map away and then putting one foot in front of the other and starting on the trail. And so I think that's where like a lot of eco anxiety comes from. There's so much arrogance in the environmental movement that I've noticed. A lot of people, like, they want to tell you what to do and how it should be. And that ego turns into cynicism and anxiety when you're not getting what you want. So humble yourself, make your goals, small enough to achieve. That's another one of Lonely Whale. One of our lines in our mission and vision is, we will be as small as we need to be successful. No bigger. We don't want to be a big, huge organization, because once it gets to be a certain size, you lose track of all the moving pieces, and it just, you're not as effective, and you lose sight of your values. So humble yourself, relax. You don't have to take the weight of the world on your shoulders. We must do it together. So give some respect to all of everybody. Like, we're all going to have to do this together.
There's a lot of wisdom in that. So I'm hearing humility, self-care, creating balance, like every day having routines, things that you do to keep yourself on the level and balanced, so that you have probably the strength and courage required to look at the bigger picture. And then I'm also hearing, and they're also like, find your lane. Like, what is it that you love? What are you passionate about? And just take a step every day towards that.
Yeah.
Does that sum it up pretty well?
Yeah. And find joy. And that's why connection with others is so important. That's why the Ocean Heroes Boot Camp is so important, because these youngsters can connect with each other and have fun. We also need to find a certain irreverence to life. Otherwise, it's not worth living. It's not even worth saving if it's not like an enjoyable experience. So give yourself a break, and there's so much relief, tension relief in laughter and fun.
Totally. A couple more questions. You mentioned a couple times this concept of saving the ocean, and I think you and I share the same belief that the ocean and planet doesn't need to be saved. I prefer the words protecting or restoring the ocean. Why is saving a word that we should drop from the vernacular?
I think for me, it's more to be in service of, to steward the land. And I think we do have an important role in working with nature to create systems that bring it into resonance in its biggest, most potential abundance. We can do that, certainly. But when it's saving you, I think it implies that somehow how everything needs to be. And that's, I think, a false instinct. We are ultimately in service of, we are interconnected with, but emergent from nature. We are not above it. We can't save it. We are in it.
We are it.
We are it.
Well said. So I want to end by going back to kind of where we've been, actually, around personal development and self-work. You lead a nonprofit that has many, many action-based campaigns. You invest in technologies designed to improve the planet. But it seems to me what you really feel and believe is that how we treat ourselves through self-love and healing, this is what will dictate how we treat each other, how we treat the ocean, how we treat the planet as a whole. Does our inner world truly create the outer, and is elevating consciousness the linchpin to creating a world where 8 billion people can live in harmony with each other and nature?
To close, this is...
We'll end with a big one.
This is to open. I think we're in really exciting times in terms of, our exploration of what it means to be alive and to be conscious and to be, sovereign creators of our experience. Nature, nurture. Are we pre-programmed, or do we get to actually have a hand in a creative force in who we are and what we become. And so, yeah, I do believe personally that we are powerful creative beings, and we're learning to ride the levers and play with what that actually looks like. So yes, I think a lot of inner work, a spiritual pursuit of sorts. You decide, orient yourself to an ideal so that you can, and then always question your ideal and always tailor it. But we can actually manifest and create a world that we're all living, in harmony. And I think we're just in a phase, right? We were in a phase, an ego-based phase, where we had to separate ourselves from nature to feel ourselves, to know ourselves as individuals, to feel powerful, to feel, because, nature can be pretty scary, unchecked, and it has been quite dangerous to humans. Humans are vulnerable to natural elements. So we did have to, as part of our evolution, as part of our development, separate ourselves, have dominion, have a sense of power and dominance. And now we're at a new stage of evolution where we can start to recognize that we're not separate, that we are connected, but that separation is an important awareness that we can then apply to how we can do good things now that we have autonomy and self-awareness. So yeah, I'm excited about what's coming in the future.
That's good. Always boils down to love, doesn't it?
And love.
And we will end on that note. Adrian, I will definitely share links to where people can watch the movie and what they can do to support Lonely Whale. Everything that we talked about today, we'll make sure everybody can access all the incredible projects that you guys are focused on. Any final word real quick before we wrap up?
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you all for being here today. Adrian, you're awesome. Keep doing the work, man. Mm-hmm. You are an inspiration to many. And it was really good to spend this time with you today. Thank you so much, brother.
Likewise. Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. That's our show. Thank you.